Most people see Bruce Lee and they see the speed, the power, the iconic yellow jumpsuit. They think his greatest battle was against the strongest fighters in the world. But what if I told you that the man who could move faster than the camera could capture was terrified? Not of a punch, not of a kick, but of something far more dangerous. And the secret he used to conquer that fear didn't just make him a legend. It's a tool that you, right now, can use to turn your biggest weakness into your most unstoppable strength. Picture this. It's the mid-60s. Bruce is at his absolute lowest point. He's stuck in a small, damp apartment in Oakland. He's got no movie deals, no recognition, and his body, his greatest weapon, is shattered. He's suffering from a severe back injury that the doctors said would end his martial arts career forever. He's lying there, unable to move, unable to train, staring at the ceiling. Most people would have quit. They would have accepted the reality they were given. But Bruce, he wasn't like most people. While he was stuck in that bed, he didn't focus on the pain. He focused on the void. He started writing. He started studying philosophy. He started dissecting his own mind. He realized that the pain wasn't just physical, it was a manifestation of his own internal friction. He was afraid that he had peaked, that his potential was a lie, and that fear, that was the shadow that almost killed him. But then, he did something that still gives me chills. He realized that fear is just energy that hasn't been directed yet. You feel it in your gut, your heart races, your palms sweat. That's not an enemy, that's fuel. He started training his mind with the same intensity he trained his fists. He realized that the faster you run from fear, the more power you give it. So, what did he do? He leaned in. He did the one thing that felt like death. He stopped trying to be the best, and started trying to be empty. You've heard of, be water, my friend, right? But do you actually know what that means? It's not about being soft. It's about being formless. When you're afraid, you get rigid. You get tight. You try to control everything. And that's exactly when you lose. Bruce realized that if he could become like water, adapting, flowing, letting the fear pass through him instead of hitting him, he couldn't be touched. And this is where the story gets really wild. It wasn't overnight. He spent hours, months, staring at his own reflection in the mirror, trying to find that state of no mind. And the moment it finally clicked, the moment he truly surrendered to the fear, his physical recovery accelerated. It was like his body followed his mind. He wasn't just training a martial artist anymore. He was engineering a human who was completely liberated from the fear of failure. Think about your own life for a second. What are you holding onto so tightly that it's actually breaking you? What fear of, what if, is keeping you from starting that project, that conversation, or that new chapter? Bruce Lee didn't need a gym to conquer his world. He needed a notebook and a mirror. He looked his shadow in the eye and said, "You don't control me. You're just part of the process." And that shift in perspective, that's what made him a ghost on the screen. But wait, here's the twist. You probably think Bruce Lee was always confident, always ready, always on. But the real Bruce was constantly battling the temptation to be someone he wasn't. He struggled with his identity, with racism in Hollywood, with the feeling of being an outsider. He wasn't fearless. He was the master of using fear. He transformed his frustration into focus. He turned his anger into ambition. And that brings us to the biggest lesson, the one most people ignore. It's the empty cup theory. Bruce knew that to be powerful, you have to be willing to be a beginner again. He never stopped learning. Even after he became the biggest star on the planet, he was still constantly refining his techniques, still watching his own footage to find the flaws. He was never the master. He was always the student. How many of us are too afraid to look like a beginner, so we stay stuck in our own mediocrity? Imagine having that kind of discipline. To look at your biggest failure, your biggest source of anxiety, and instead of hiding it, to use it as the weight for your mental workout. When you start doing that, everything changes. The people who doubted you, they become background noise. The challenges that used to paralyze you, they become your training ground. You're no longer fighting to win, you're fighting to evolve. Deep down, Bruce knew that the external accolades, the movie deals, the fame, the money, were just illusions. He once wrote that the core of his philosophy was honesty to oneself. How often do you lie to yourself about why you aren't doing the thing you know you need to do? Bruce didn't let himself off the hook. When he couldn't walk, he didn't stop training. He trained his mind to visualize the movement until his brain created the pathways for his legs to follow. That isn't just martial arts. That's pure, unadulterated neuroplasticity. Consider the discipline it took to live in a world that constantly wanted to define him. Hollywood wanted him to be a sidekick, a caricature, a stereotype. But Bruce refused to be a character in someone else's script. He was the author of his own existence. He practiced what he called self-actualization, the idea that you are a growing, living, changing project that is never truly finished. Most of us stop growing in our 20s because we're too afraid to let go of the identities we've built. But Bruce, he was always reinventing. He went from a traditional Wing Chun practitioner to a hybrid fighter, to a philosopher, to an actor, to a director. He was a constant evolution. And don't think for a second that he didn't have bad days. He dealt with chronic pain his whole life, the pressure of providing for his family, and the constant rejection of an industry that didn't know what to do with him. There were days he wanted to throw the towel in. But he had a rule. If you want to be somebody, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences of being yourself. That's the price of admission to a legendary life. Are you willing to pay it? Are you willing to be misunderstood, to be rejected, to struggle, as long as you're being authentic to your own potential? It's easy to look at his physique and think it was all genes, but it was relentless, agonizing consistency. He was obsessed with efficiency. He didn't waste time on things that didn't contribute to his mission. He cut out the noise. He understood that time is the only non-renewable resource, and he treated every single minute like a master jeweler treats a diamond. He was ruthless with his focus. Where is your focus leaking today? What are you spending your time on that isn't moving you closer to the person you want to become? This is the part that most people miss about his "be water" philosophy. Water is soft, but it can cut through rock. Water is patient, but it can carve mountains. Being soft doesn't mean being weak, it means being adaptive. When the world hits you with resistance, don't harden and break. Flow around it. Use the energy of the opposition to propel you forward. That's the secret to longevity in any field, whether you're a fighter, an artist, or a business owner. And that's the real reason we're still talking about him, decades later. It's not just the fighting. It's the philosophy. He showed us that the limits you see aren't real. They're just lines drawn by other people, or by your own insecurity. If a guy from a tiny apartment in Oakland could turn a broken spine into the foundation of a global legacy, what does that say about what you could do with your impossible situation? The biggest secret he left behind isn't in his films. It's in his journals. He wrote, "Do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." He didn't want the obstacles removed. He wanted to become the kind of person who could walk through them. And that, my friend, is true power. So, what is it for you? What is the fear that's been holding you back? Don't just watch this and move on. Use this. Today, take one action. Just one, that scares you. One thing you've been avoiding because you're afraid of the outcome. Lean into the tension. Don't try to force the result. Just be water. Be flexible. Let the fear come up. Acknowledge it, and then use that energy to push yourself forward. You don't need a black belt to live like Bruce Lee. You just need the courage to be honest with yourself about where you're holding back. Because once you stop running from your own shadows, you start to realize something incredible. Those shadows aren't monsters. They're just proof that you're finally stepping into the light. And the light, that's where the real you lives. Are you going to keep playing it safe? Or are you going to start training for the life you actually want? The choice is yours. The tools are yours. And honestly, the world is waiting to see what happens when you finally stop fighting yourself and start fighting for who you were meant to be. This is your moment. Don't waste it. Take that first step. Be the student, stay empty, and let yourself become something completely new. What's the first thing you're going to tackle today? Because once you start, there's no turning back. And trust me, you're going to love who you find on the other side. Remember, the goal isn't just to be successful. The goal is to be fully alive. Bruce Lee understood that life is a series of battles, but the only one that matters is the one you fight against your own limitations. The moment you decide that your fear is no longer a stop sign, but a signal to move forward, that is the moment you unlock the door to everything you've ever dreamed of. Go out there and make it happen. I'm rooting for you.